So hello and welcome to our lecture titled CRUD, Create, Read, Update, and Delete. We have been a long way coming, to get to this lecture. In a sense, there's nothing new in this lecture. We've been doing all these things, we've been deleting data, we know how to talk to the database. Things like redirect are important, things like flash message are important. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to, in a sense, take the code we've been writing all along in these various applications and refactor it so that it looks more like a typical application. And then we'll use the idea of the ability to insert, delete, update, and read records in the database as a pattern for lots of applications. So this is where we kind of review everything we've talked about for the last so many lectures. So we've done most of it, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. We have this database. This is one from a couple of lectures back, and it's got this little delete button, and it's got an add button, and it does so this is like the read, this is delete, this is the C button. We are not doing any updating yet, and so that's the new thing we're going to do. But usually we take these things and don't put them all on the same screen. So we're going to break these pieces into different screens and put them in different files, and that's typically how we do these things. And so we'll end up with a bunch of files, like a file to do the add screen, a file to do the edit screen, a file to do the delete and edit, and all those things. And so we're just going to pull stuff out. So it's not really all that new. So just as an example, the first thing we'll do is we're going to have an insert screen that's add.php, and then we'll have the index.php that does nothing more than lists all of the items and then gives us an edit button, delete button, and an add new button. And so it's code we've written, but we're going to move it around. So let's take a look at some of the index.php. We are removing all of the insert code into its own add.php, and so there's less in the index.php code. We're going to require pdo.php. We're going to start the session and then start our HTML, and there's no posting here. So this is a script that's only going to do gets, because the add was the reason we did post in this kind of code before. So we have our model up at top, but there's no model. And so the view down here, we start our body, and the first thing we do is print out this flash. And so this notion of the flash messages, and that's checking to see if either error or success is out, and then printing out a red version of the error or a green version of a paragraph with the error in it, and then unsetting them. Unsetting removes those keys. So if ever this index starts and it sees one of those two things in the session, it's going to print it out, and away we go. So that's going to become a pattern we're going to do over and over again. And then we print out a table, because we're just going to print the table out. And we do a basic select, a select statement, and we pull out, and in addition we get the user ID, the primary key, and then we make out table rows and use HTML entity, show out the name, password, and then we put in this time we're not going to use a form, we're just going to use an href. We're not actually posting back, because in those other ones we posted back, and we'll see why we do that in a moment. So we simply do a get request to edit.php user ID equals, and then 1 or 4 or whatever, and delete.php, because now we've made those other files. So this code is getting a little bit simpler in a way as we're sort of pulling it out into pieces, and then we just have a link to add new. So this is a relatively simple program. It checks, it has no post data, it doesn't expect to be posted to, it's only a get, but it will print out flash messages, and then it just loops through and prints out our data and has a couple of links to the other pages that are properly formed. And so this leads to these edit buttons. If we take a look at what's underneath these edit buttons, they are, just get messages, get user ID equals 2 or whatever, etc., etc., etc. And then we just go to those pages, edit.php and delete.php. So add.php is code that we've just really pulled out from that old code that we were doing in a couple of slides back, or a couple lectures back. And so it's pretty much the same. We're going to have a session. We pull in our database. We have some view code, model code right up here that's doing our database. And this looks exactly like the add code from before. We set up the insert statement, and we execute it with the stuff. And the difference is now that when we are done with that, we put a little flash message in the a flash message in the session, and then we redirect back to index.php, and always remember, return afterwards, return afterwards. And so on a post, this is going to come in like this, do this work, and then leave. And then on a get, it's going to come in, fall through, and display the form. Okay? So that is code we've done before, but it's also simpler. So the last time we looked at this code, it was all, the index and the add was all one, but by pulling them out, we're keeping them a little easier to understand. And so that's helpful. Okay, and so when we finally hit the add button, right, we press the add button, it comes in, it does the post, it does the insert, and then it sets the stuff in the session, and then it redirects to index.php, and there's that little bit of code in index.php when we get back here to index.php that pulls that thing out and puts out the little green message. So that's the flow. We're in index.php, we hit the add button, we come to here, we hit the submit button, go back through, and then we go back to index.php with the word record added upon success. Now, this code is a little simple. We might want to check for errors. We might check for data validity. I'm keeping that out of here just so that it fits on the screen nicely. But you know, the data validation actually fits right here because you do want to do all the data validation before you do any inserts into the database. Now, the delete.php, again, is code that we've done kind of similarly before. One of the things that you'll find is that deletes often have pop-ups or some other page. And part of that is to get to the point where the actual delete is done as a result of the post. So in this code, delete.php, we're going to have a get parameter, user ID equals 4. We're going to grab our database, we're going to start our session. We're doing a get, so the post isn't there yet. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to pull up the data because this user ID 4 or whatever may or may not be a valid user ID in our database. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a select, pull up the person's name so that we can then echo it. We're doing it and pull out that 4 in that get parameter. So where user ID equals 4. And then we're going to do a fetch. And if we didn't find a row, that means that somehow this number is bad. And we're going to put a error message in and then redirect back to index.php and then leave. Don't fall through. Pretty much when you say header, you pretty much want to return is the next statement. And if the get falls that comes through here, the get actually comes through here. If the get gets to this point, then we're going to put out the person's name with HTML entities, of course, because they might have a single quote in their name or something dangerous. And then we have the user ID as a hidden field. That's the user ID, and we pulled that in with a select statement. And then we have a delete button, and we just have a simple href to go back to index.php for canceling. So we make this a post. Got to make it a post because if the post comes back in, you know, when we hit this post button, it's going to come back in here. And so we only want that to be a post so that for all the rules that you're not supposed to modify data on a post. And then when we finally hit the post button, press the post button, it comes up, it runs the delete, does the delete, and then says record deleted in success, and then redirects to index.php and ends the script. So what happens is now you know all these things, these patterns will get more and more comfortable for you. So that's a delete. And this is the flow, right? You go from, you click a delete button, which has a get parameter on it, which goes to here. It produces this. This is a post back, and then it runs the post code, sets this thing in session and redirects to index.php. And there, of course, the code is in the index.php to pull out the flash message and remove it from the flash message. And so that's the flow. So we do a get request here, a post request here, and then a redirect and another get request. So we're still redirecting from a post to a get, but we're redirecting to a get of a different script. And we are sending this session, using this session to send that message to a different script, and so that it's okay. And so that's part of the controller function, is the routing from one thing to another. And so the only thing that's really new, everything else of that code was kind of stuff we'd seen, other than the fact that it's using post and redirect and flash messages, but the edit is the only thing that's a little bit weird. And the weird thing that the edit has to do that's different than all the other screens is it wants to put the old values from the database in. Okay, and so So we're on a GET request, so it's going to go right past the post stuff, okay? So on a GET request, delete ID equals 7 or whatever it is, user ID equals 7. And so we're going to go pull out the data, select star, which is name and email and user ID and everything from the database. We're going to get 1 row or 0 rows. And so we'll run this thing and we'll fetch our row. And if we get a false, that means that something bad happened, so we send it. You just put in an error message and go back to index.php and leave. So you kind of know that's a safe thing. Just get out of here. But chances are good, if the link came from index.php, this is going to work and you're going to have an actual row. And then row is going to have the key value pairs of all the columns of that row. And it'll fall down now into this next bit of code. And so what I do here is I'm going to take and make an HTML entities, the name and email and password, and then pull out the user ID. And I'm kind of now in the view part. So all of a sudden it says edit user, blah, 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 blah. And then you have this typed in stuff, the name for the value, email, password, and the user ID. And I make the user ID hidden. The notion of having a form with a hidden tag that's like the primary key of what's being updated, that's a pretty common notion. So in here is the user ID for whatever it is, so that when you press the update button, it knows what user ID that you mean to update. And we name these things name, email, password, and user ID, so we can then take a look at them when we're responding to the post code. And so what happens then is, of course, you go to the edit, and that's a GET request, with an ID equals on the end of this thing. And it has the old stuff in it, and then we modify it, right? We make changes to it. It has pulled these out, and now we're about to hit the update, which is a post request coming in, and there is the hidden variable of the user ID that we don't see in there. And so we can check to see if the name, email, password, and user ID is set in the post data. That's just kind of a sanity checking. If we were going to do any error checking of the validity, which we should, I'm just not doing it here, it'd be right here. And this next code of running the SQL, the update statement, update users set name equals colon name, email equals colon email. These colons, remember, are just placeholders for PDO. And then we're going to prepare that, and then we're going to run it based on pulling the post data in from the form, and then that'll work. And then here we go, these 3 lines. You're going to type these 3 lines so many times. Set a success message of record updated, and then redirect to index.php, and then return so we don't fall down into the GET code. And then that'll cause a GET request to happen here, and then index.php will pull out that success message and wipe it out and print everything. And so there's not really all that much new in here. Pretty much the idea is this looks kind of like an add form, except that the add form now has value equals for all these things, which then we pulled out of the database. We pulled out of the database right here. So we pull the record out of the database. We complain if we don't find it. If we do find it, we write the same form, but we just put value equals in to have all the old values, which means now you can just go in, drive around and edit them, and then hit the submit button, and then send the data in and run an update statement, and then come back to index.php with a success message. So I encourage you to take a look at that code. I encourage you to understand pretty much every single line of the CRUD example. It's not that hard, right? But it wraps up a whole lot of things about posting and redirecting and PDO and like so many things. Now you can look at that and understand hopefully every single line. And now we can go from just sort of learning the basic mechanics of HTTP and how we manipulate HTTP and what are some of the underlying things we have to do. But instead now we can start building more fun applications because they're all slight variations on CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. And so going forward, it'll be more fun than it has been because we know enough at the end of this lecture to build basic PHP applications.